7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Right on. You are that close to booking a ticket, aren't you? Come on, go for it. Go for it. You'll be glad you did. But hey, hold on. Hang on there. I think you better listen to these few tips before you do. So here are my 2 pesos on getting to the Philippines. Now, of course, you have to remember, I'm coming from North America and the West Coast at that. So these tips might not apply if you're coming from Europe or Australia, but you know what? They're tips that should apply from anywhere. So hopefully they will help. And if not, you're on your own. But you'll definitely get there. Just book that ticket. That's all that really matters. Now, flying into the Philippines, you might have the choice of 3 arrival points. That would be Manila, Clark, or Cebu. Now, if you're fortunate like me and fly in from Vancouver, you have a choice of any of those 3. You might not be as lucky, but here are the advantages and disadvantages of arriving at any one of those arrival destinations. So here's the advantages of landing in Manila. Well, you're in the big city, and you definitely have the choice of connecting flights. A lot more opportunities and destinations to fly from there. Now, the disadvantage? Well, that's exactly it. You're in Manila. And I personally try and avoid Manila like the plague. But that's because I've been there. If it's your first time coming into the Philippines, you know Manila might be your choice. It's a huge city. There's actually quite a bit to do there. But be careful. Now, by being careful, I don't mean it's any more dangerous than anywhere else in the Philippines. Not that at all. It's just a lot more expensive. There are a lot more scammers, and it's a lot easier to get ripped off, especially by taxi cabs. I'm telling you right now, if you fly into Manila, be careful of the taxi cabs. Now, flying into Clark. The advantage of flying into Clark is basically for the sake of Angeles and Angeles only. You're limited once you get there, but you are in Angeles and you don't have to deal with any of the Manila madness, especially the traffic between the 2 cities. And again, those taxi cabs, be wary of the taxi cab. Now, as for landing in Clark, it's usually a stopover required if you're coming from North America. And that stopover is, for myself, either Taiwan or Hong Kong. But it's usually only the one layover. Sometimes not very long. My layover personally is usually about 4 hours. But I know there's one that's actually 12 hours as well. And I wouldn't want to be laid over for 12 hours, but 4 hours is no problem in and off. And I personally save 500 bucks Canadian by flying into Angeles. And that is another factor. 500 bucks goes a long ways in the Philippines. That's a lot of San Miguel's. Now, the 3rd international arrival point in the Philippines, from North America anyway, is Cebu. Cebu City, basically in the Visayas central region or southern region of the Philippines. And that's exactly what it's designed for, is for a direct flight for people that are headed down south. Again, want to avoid the Manila madness, have no interest in going to Angeles or don't need to be there right now, and again, are headed down south. I personally have never flown into Cebu internationally directly. It's always been a domestic flight and connecting from there. So I don't know a lot about it. You might want to check with somebody else, but if you need information, I'll try and get you whatever you need. So those are your destination international arrival points into the Philippines from North America, from around the world. You have Manila, Clark, and Cebu. Now it's time to think of the destination, the point you want, and book that flight. Okay, so now you have your destination and arrival points in the Philippines chosen. Now it's time to think about airlines and, of course, booking agents. And here are my 2 pesos on each of those. Now it's time to decide whether you're going to use a booking agent or whether you're going to book directly with an airline. Now, I have done both and have had different experiences with each. I've used a booking agent. I'm not going to say which one, but I'll never use one again. I just go directly to the man and go straight with the airline. It's a lot easier. Just find out which airline you want to fly to the Philippines and go from there. Again, I do not recommend an outside booking agent. Not at all. It doesn't even usually save you a lot of money. But the one thing I do recommend is booking your seat as far in advance as possible. There's definitely a discount in that. Now, we're very fortunate that we have a lot of choices on getting to the Philippines. I've used 4 of those choices, and they include Philippine Airlines, Air Canada, Cathay Pacific, and EVA Airlines. There's quite a few more, so you might want to check with other vloggers and see what they recommend, but those are 4 that I've used, and here are my recommendations on them all. All were okay, all were good actually, and I have no real complaints about any of them. I've flown Philippine Airlines because it is direct nonstop from Vancouver to Manila, and it is the only airline that flies directly nonstop from Vancouver to Manila. Now, my favorite of those airlines is Cathay Pacific. I love Cathay Pacific. Number one, because they don't charge me anything extra for my surfboards. Everybody else does, and everybody else actually charges up to $350, which is a lot of money. And Cathay Pacific, just to let you know, the airfare from Vancouver to Manila round trip with a 6-month open airfare is generally around $1,300. And you can get it for less. You can fly EVA Airlines, which is the least expensive, great airline as well, from Vancouver with one stop in Taipei. You can get that flight return Vancouver to Manila for $723. So you do save $500 there, but they're going to charge you $350 for the surfboard. So I just do it on principle alone. And to be honest with you, Cathay Pacific, in my opinion, is a little bit better airline. So a North American airfare should range economy class from the West Coast to Manila, anywhere from about $730 to about $1,400. Again, economy class. I'm not exactly sure the price of a first class ticket or even a business class. Nah, that's not in my pay scale and not my style. If it's yours, you might want to check with the airline or another vlogger and find out exactly what that is. The one last point I do have to make is on the surfboard, that extra baggage allowance. That is for exactly that extra baggage allowance. It's not just for surfboards, and that's why I chose Cathay Pacific. Again, they were a lot more lenient on excess baggage, $350 to be exact, and that's quite lenient. Now, the next tip advice I have before you book that ticket is, as you're booking the ticket, hopefully you have a choice of seats. And here's a little tip that I have done every flight I've taken to the Philippines, which has been solo by myself. And what I do is I pop online and I check out the little map that gives you your seat selection. What I look for, well, number one is 61K on a 777. But if that row is full or there's even 2 people in there, I usually avoid that seat. Usually if it's empty, I'll take it anyway. But what I look for is somebody that is sitting in an aisle seat, because I like the window. So if there's an aisle seat and nobody has chosen that middle seat and a window seat is available, I'll take that window seat. Basically under the pretense that who in the hell in their right mind is going to choose, if they have a choice, that middle seat? Especially since every flight I've taken to the Philippines has been far from full. Coming home, that's another story. But going there, it's always been lots of room. So like I mentioned, who's going to choose that middle seat? And that's just another little point from your grubby pirate. And you are welcome. Okay, ticket in hand, you're at the airport, it's time to go. You're 3 hours early, right, to get through customs, to get through security, all the fun stuff. Well, there's one more thing to think about before you even head to the airport, and that is your passport. Now, I made this mistake. I had no clue. First time I flew to the Philippines, I arrived at the airport all excited, ready to rock and roll. It's midnight. I'm headed to Manila. Woohoo! Road trip, the party is on. Well, you know what? I check in. They're looking at my passport, and the lady at the reservations desk goes, "Sorry, sir, you are not going to be able to get on this flight this evening." And I'm like, what? What the hell? She goes, "Yes, sir, your passport has less than 6 months remaining on its validity." I'm like, I'm only going for 2 weeks. And I've got, how much time do I have? 5 months and 27 days. Yes, I was 3 days short on my passport. It had 6 months left, well, almost 6 months, but they were not letting me on that bird. There was no way. So I got left behind. That'll be another story another time, but check your passport. Make sure you have at least 6 months remaining on your passport at your departure date, because they will not allow you on the plane. And believe me, you don't want to get there and go through that grief. I was refunded, caught the next plane the next, a couple days later, but it cost me a lot of money at the embassy getting a rush passport and the whole bit. But like I said, that's another story. And if you want to hear more about it, just let me know. Sweet. You're checked in. You're on your way to security, customs, and you're awaiting bird. All you have to do now is just be quiet. Don't say a fucking word. Just do what you're asked to do. Say what you're asked to say. Pass through there. Head on down to the gate. Hop onto that bird. Have a safe trip, and bon voyage. We will see you in the Philippines. and hopefully we'll see you at the Uhuru Bar. Get into the Philippines is honestly, it's as easy as that. Now, once you're there, that's a whole other story and a whole new video. And that might be my next one. Welcome to Manila. Welcome to Clark. Welcome to Cebu. Enjoy your time in the Philippines. I hope the video helped and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, you've made it this far, I hope you'll subscribe, throw me a bone. This is the Grubby Pirate, and I'm out.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.